Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media, St. Louis's home for arts, education, and culture.
Just being interested and making your children curious.
Some of the most key things that allow our arts to be the storytellers of our city.
This isn't a short-term solution, this is a long-term possibility.
Today on Spotlight, meet Susan Blow, a St. Louisan known as the mother of the public kindergarten after she opened the first publicly funded one in the U.S. Plus, new robotic technology is introduced in the fight against lung cancer. Find out how it works. And then helping teachers thrive through creative thinking, how you can solve problems and be impactful. But first, a program helping police officers change the way people see them. It's Sunday and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
Okay, here's a $1 million question.
Huh? Yeah, $1 million.
Who's your favorite police officer? For a while, when we first came here, they didn't even know we were police officers.
Meet Darren Young. The kids call him Shaq. Now with the St. Louis County Sheriff's Department, he's been a police officer for 35 years. The last 8 years in what's called the PAL program. The PAL program is where kids and cops connect. It's a connection aimed at changing the public perception of police.
Tomorrow, remember, we are going to have South County coming up. We're going to play a nice friendly game of kickball. We're going to have some pizza. We're going to play dodgeball. Our job is humanizing the badge. It's building relationships with the community.
Brandon Sierra is also part of the PAL program, a program that puts police in schools, on playgrounds, and in summer camps like this one.
Head up, let's go. Walk down, head up, head up, head up, keep your head up, keep your head up, keep your head up. Who's me?
Well, you know, on videos, the police officers. But y'all are really nice. I love y'all a lot.
It's a stigma that's been attached to the black community, and the police, when you see the police, you give them the look or the stare or whatever, or are they looking at me or are they judging me, and it's something we have to get past, and it's a shame that we're in 2023 and we're still there.
This is 11-year-old Casey and 10-year-old Nyla's first year in the PAL program.
I realized he was a cop, and I was like, oh, wow. And it was amazing. They could actually change their perspective about how they see the world. Exactly. And how they see cops.
In 2015, many of the officers now in PAL were on duty during the Ferguson riots. It was a difficult time, especially for those like Officer Brandon, who was a school resource officer.
They called us out to be involved on the front lines of the riots, so we'd have a lot of issues back at school. Sometimes the same kids we'd meet on the street or in our schools as well. 1
year later, out of a need to heal the divide between the cops and the community, the PAL program was formed. For officers like Darren, that wound is still healing.
When I come here, excuse me.
What are the tears?
It's joy. It's joy. You're around the kids, they're happy, they're sad, and they're smiling, they're laughing. And that's a full day. For me, it's probably the best job I've ever had, and I know that for a fact.
When you have the ball in your hand, you can take 3 steps and must pass to a teammate. These bonds we've established over the 6-7 years are unmatchable. We have kids that have gone up to college now. They call us with issues.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hey.
How's work?
It was good. Hot out there.
In some cases, a bond so strong, they become family.
This is the kind of stuff that we were talking about, like when you take a car loan out.
Yeah.
Sergeant Jennifer Williams, one of the founding members of the St. Louis PAL program, now fosters 19-year-old Dalen Kincaid. Their connection began in 2020 when reports of abuse in his home sent Dalen to the University City Police Station.
I responded to the University City Police Department, and I sat with Dalen that night for probably about 8 hours.
I felt that night that my back was against the wall, but I knew, she didn't leave. Something told me, I was like, I was telling myself, like, you good, bro.
Dalen was raised by his grandmother, who had recently died. He didn't have many options.
It did touch my heart because we were there for some time. I know anyone else would have been like, I washed their hands with it and eventually went home,
Nowhere near the goals and aspirations and passions that we have inside.
That day I prayed the whole day that, I will get a good opportunity, to be able to have a successful life.
I planned on leaving with this child from the University City Police Department that night. I planned on it. And the state put him in a facility instead.
From there, Dalen went on to live with his Pee Wee football coach, who later died of COVID. All the time, Jennifer stayed in his life. He had his own room at her house. Today, Dalen is thankful to the cops, including his now foster mom, for coming to his rescue.
I probably, either been in jail or locked up. Jail, dead, honestly, it's hard to talk about sometimes.
That's your goal. Okay, so if you don't feel like you've gotten as much done in class that day that you would have liked to have done, what's your goal?
It was a blessing. It was God touching me, and it was God talking to me, telling me that he got me.
Dalen now lives with Jennifer and her 16-year-old son, Mac. In the fall, Dalen will be a sophomore at Missouri Valley, where he received a football scholarship. What does the future look like going forward?
I just see us still being a happy family we are, me telling them, calling them, hey, I ordered y'all tickets for the game, ordered y'all tickets for the Jets game. Honestly, that's where I see it going.
Jennifer has since retired. The program cut to just 2 or 3 officers due to a need for more cops on the streets. But to Jennifer and the officers that remain, PAL's purpose still stands.
It showed me there was a purpose, and we could make a difference in law enforcement, and we can do it directly with children's lives.
It's going to be generation after generation. This isn't a short-term solution. This is a long-term possibility.
I would love to see programs like PAL all over the country to say, okay, hey, if this is what it takes, then that's what it takes. I mean, we got to try something. So why not PAL?
You have a channel, shout it out.
HEC Media, bringing you culture and community. Find all of HEC's positive programming and award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, president of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis. In 1873, St. Louis and Susan Blow opened the first publicly funded kindergarten in the United States. Public historian Adam Kloppe tells us how this served as a model for early childhood education to public schools across the country.
Early childhood education is something that is incredibly important, but early childhood education in America would look so much different today if not for the efforts of one St. Louis woman, a woman by the name of Susan Blow. So in 1870, Susan Blow was traveling with her family to Europe, and she was a very educated woman. Her family was one of the richest in St. Louis, and she had used that background to get a really great education for herself. And one of the things she was most interested in was early childhood education. So while her family is on this trip to Europe in 1870, she knows she wants to stop in Germany to meet with a German educator and philosopher by the name of Friedrich Froebel. And Froebel had these really sort of revolutionary ideas about early childhood education. He believed that children learned through play, that they were inherently good and curious, and that their play would lead them to new discoveries. And this was a huge break from what people had thought about early childhood education before. Before that, they viewed children as sort of these wild monsters that needed to be controlled. But Froebel didn't believe that. He believed that, if you took kids on nature walks, if you gave them blocks, in different shapes or with numbers on them, or if you taught them things like the alphabet through song, that they would learn and they would socialize. He developed these classrooms that try to do exactly that. And he called his classrooms kindergartens. So when Susan Blow travels to Germany in the 1870s, she wants to meet with him and see these kindergartens in action. And she comes away from that convinced that kindergartens would be really good for students in the United States. And she's not the first person to think this, for the record. There were a few people who had visited with Froebel before and brought kindergartens to the United States, but these were private classrooms that these people were bringing back. Students had to have their parents pay to get a spot in these kindergartens. And Susan Blow believed that this kind of education, this learning through play, could be good for all students. So she wanted to make kindergartens public in the United States. So when she gets back here in 1871, she goes to meet with the St. Louis School Board, for the public schools, and she tells them about her plan to bring kindergartens to the St. Louis Public School District. And what they tell her is, that sounds like a great idea. We don't have the money for that. So if you can put that together yourself, if you want to use your own funds to put that together and try this out, we'd love to see what the results of that would be. And so Susan Blow takes them up on the offer. She sets up her own kindergarten classroom at the DePere School down in Carondelet. It takes a little bit. It takes until 1873 for this classroom to get up and running. But it is almost an instant success. Almost right away, she can see that those students are learning so much better. Their parents are really impressed with these methods, and they're telling their friends, maybe who have kids that go to other school districts, about how much these kindergartens are mattering to these kids. Within a few years, there's other schools within the St. Louis School District that want kindergartens for their own. So Susan Blow is training other teachers. She's going to other schools in the St. Louis public schools and setting up schools there. Over the next 11 years, she trains over 50 kindergarten teachers and opens over 50 kindergarten classrooms within the St. Louis School District. And representatives from other school districts around the country are coming to St. Louis just to see how these kindergartens are set up to be successful in public schools. By the time she retires in the mid-1880s, kindergartens are a success around the nation. After she retires, she keeps writing about early childhood education, offering lectures on early childhood education. And when she passes away in 1916, there's over 400 school districts around the country that have kindergartens for themselves.
Next week on History Spotlight, a style of house named after a fish.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org. Scan the QR code on your screen to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram.
And now I'm going to clean the sensor connections and attach a catheter.
The latest technology developed for bronchoscopies is introduced in St. Louis. While a bronchoscopy is nothing new,
taking a camera into the airways and examining the lung.
The latest robotic technology is taking that to a new level.
Attach the vision probe.
It is the newest modality and platform of bronchoscopy, which is robotic bronchoscopy. And yes, we're the first in the area, definitely here in St. Louis, to have it.
So now this team of interventional pulmonologists at Siteman Cancer Center at Barnes Jewish Hospital and Washington University School of Medicine has this greater ability to get tissue biopsies to test for cancer.
Advance the bronchoscope through the endotracheal tube into the patient's airway.
It is a device that has been developed to improve the ability of pulmonologists and surgeons to diagnose lung nodules. Those are spots that people have been identified with on an X-ray or a CAT scan.
Dr. Alexander Chen is an interventional pulmonologist at Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis and Barnes Jewish Hospital. Chen and his team helped develop this technology. He says it was several years in the making.
Our group has been involved with the idea and the development and some of the research that's been developed, bringing this technology to the public.
Synchronize the patient's live anatomy with the preloaded CT scan. So the robotic bronchoscope uses shape sensing technology, which continuously learns where it is in space.
The instrument is designed to target previously hard-to-reach areas of the lung, as in this demonstration.
Will help me navigate out to that nodule that was seen on the CT scan.
Get to harder-to-reach locations, smaller abnormalities in the lung, or be able to do more in the airway with what we have.
The robotic bronchoscopy has a special scope, giving doctors new ways to bend and create new angles for finding lung nodules.
You're using a joystick/wheel, right? Almost like a video game device to sort of maneuver this. But it's very smooth. I think, robotic platform has really come a long way. So how much feedback am I getting as I use it, so I get a sense of what's happening distally. Right?
The technology allows for accessibility to those spots on the lungs with precision.
So right now I am driving the bronchoscope into each lobe of the lung.
One of the things that we're most excited about is it gives us another option, another tool to help us diagnose early stage lung cancers. The majority of patients who come to us with lung cancer diagnosis do so at a later stage where the prognosis isn't quite as good and the treatment options are limited. If we're able to catch more of these lung nodules in an early stage and make a diagnosis, we can potentially offer them some type of curative therapy where they have the best chance at long, healthy lives.
As I approach the nodule, it will tell me how far I am away within millimeters. I have now reached the nodule of concern, and at this point we would move to our biopsy procedure.
The robotic bronchoscopy is also assisting surgeons.
You can actually leave a marker in place that allows the surgeon to locate that during surgery. In some instances, those procedures can be combined into one setting.
At Siteman Cancer Center, the doctors say they are excited about how the technology can help create opportunities for patients.
This is just one part of that patient's journey. How can we screen you? How can we get you diagnosis? And then once you get a diagnosis, where do you need to go? Well, do you need to see an oncologist, a radiation oncologist? Do you need to go to surgery? And we have the ability in that we're all integrated, and so we have all those resources to really make that time frame really short for our patients.
St. Louis is a world leader in cancer research.
The first cancer genome ever sequenced anywhere in the world was done here.
Local startups are playing a major role.
If you just say, what are we working on in St. Louis? It's pretty much everything.
Developing diagnostics and treatments. Making strides right here in St. Louis.
We can use that information to train the immune system on what they need to seek out and destroy wherever it is in the body.
For the latest cancer research studies and clinical trials taking place in St. Louis, search the Cancer Research page at hecmedia.org.
On this episode of the Classroom Matters podcast, host Christy Houle talks with Katie Trowbridge about how to effectively incorporate creative and critical thinking skills into learning.
What do we mean when we say teaching with curiosity and critical thinking and creativity?
What I'm talking about is being able to think for yourself, to be able to think, let me think about all the different ways I can solve this problem. And then let me think about, okay, now critically, which one is the most realistic? Which one will really work? Which one is the one that will be the most impactful? And then come up with a great, incredible solution for that problem that they're facing. You know, our kids depend on Google so much today. Let me just Google the answer. And they don't think for themselves. Well, what does that really mean? And if they are faced with a problem that they can't Google, they almost freeze. They just don't have the skills needed to be able to, okay, I got to break this problem down. Let me think creatively. Let me think critically.
Talk a little bit about how parents, teachers, educators can use the resources that you have on your website in your organization, and how they can sort of get into this beginning of the year back to school mindset.
One of my favorite activities is a questioning activity that I use. And teachers love the idea that you look at something from a different perspective. You look at the questioning as a team, as a group. We do this, and it's on something very generic, like Jesse is failing English, or Chicago Cubs are better than the White Sox. That gets students that they really care about, and just asking questions to each other. Well, why? How do you know that? Well, what about this team player? Well, what about that team player? Or something that will grab their attention and get them thinking. So then we go, remember we did that questioning activity? Now we're going to do it on this short story. Now we're going to do it on this, reading of a history document. It's just getting kids thinking, having fun those first couple of weeks. When you're teaching them how to think critically and creatively, they just don't realize it yet. Yeah. We have to change our way of thinking that this isn't just about a letter grade. This is about thinking and making classrooms a thinking environment, making our homes a thinking environment.
Parents can have those critical thinking conversations with their kids at dinner and really try to support them, even if they're not getting it in the classroom.
Right. And how incredible, what a great relationship building process that is for the parent and the child. Parents are key to helping their children think. So just sitting at dinner and saying, not just how was school today, and then you get the regular fine, but I saw that you were reading Percy Jones. I picked it up and read it too. What did you think about this character? What did you think about that? Or how did you do that math problem? I know you guys are doing, you learned math in a different way than I did when I was younger. Show me how you do that. Well, why do you do that? Just being interested and making your children curious.
Find the full Classroom Matters podcast at Educate.Today or wherever you get your podcasts. Meet the organist at the Chase later on Spotlight.
ARPA for the Arts, which is specific to us, is a program for artists and art organizations. It's a one-time grant that we hope will provide financial assistance for those who lost operations income or regular income during COVID. At this time, for round one, we have artists that are, I should say, individual artists who are residents of St. Louis City and art organizations who also have an office presence in St. Louis City. So artists need to live in one of the 14 wards, and organizations also need to have their company in one of the 14 wards and any of the zip codes that fall within those wards. So an easy way to find that out is to go to our website, racstl.org, and look under ARPA for the Arts for the grant. And then we have guidelines and links that will allow artists who live in a residence to put their address in, and it'll tell them if they live in a ward or not.
When the pandemic started, we were in the middle of rehearsing the show Annie. Shutting down a show that large was kind of shocking and kind of very debilitating and kind of emotionally difficult for everyone involved. We do a lot of work here, 6 shows a year, and having to shut that down for that amount of time was extremely difficult. And I know the actors had a really hard time too as well. Everyone lost a lot of work and a lot of money, and they lost the ability to create the work that they love to do.
How do we take artists who have been impacted from COVID, put them in situations where they can regain some power, regain some momentum? I feel like what we're going to watch is that these are going to be the same individual and the artists who begin to help shift things economically for St. Louis, because it takes that boost.
Artists and art organizations, like their contribution to the art community here is so essential. You look around and art is everywhere. We really want to assist both to help them continue to give the gift of what they provide, to the St. Louis area.
We don't want innovation to be stifled by the living conditions of an artist. And if we talk about the living conditions of an artist in St. Louis, there are very key, pivotal things that can be done to change things so artists can be in a stronger position of self-funding. But until then, the funds for artists and organizations, these are going to be some of the most key things that allow us to have true social change, that really allow our arts to be the storytellers of our city as a whole.
That funding is amazing because it can help rebuild the things that we lost. And everyone was just so conscious, it seemed, of making sure that the arts organizations, not just theater, but dance and music and all the wonderful things that we have, had a chance to come back and grow. And RAC having the ability to come and meet with us and talk about what our needs are and what we went through kind of helped us also emotionally in our world of bringing back our spirits. So yes, funding will be funding and it's going to help financially, but there's other things that it builds. It builds on unity. It does build on almost becoming like a spiritual revival again to help us come back to what we do.
I want to shoot an extra reminder to all of the artists out there, whether you feel like it may seem like it's a daunting task to fill out this grant or a daunting task to even understand your eligibility, take some time out to really take a look at the steps. Reach out to the Regional Arts Commission. There are people there who are designated to help.
Some people understand, but some don't, that artists, we're strange creatures. We're very emotional and sensitive, and times are rough when you can't do and express what you want to express. And the ARPA funds are an asset to not only keeping our building going, getting our payback, but helping us in a variety of ways that make us strong and healthy.
So you can visit our website at racstl.org, which is racstl.org, and click on grants. Or you can shoot me an email at arpaforthearts@racstl.org.
You can find the stories featured in today's show along with past episodes and more at hecmedia.org/spotlight.
I play before the movies in Theater 1 and also in Theater 2. I play show tunes, some popular music, what fits the picture. If it's kind of we do a lot of artsy movies, independent movies. Sometimes they do a biopic, and I try to get the music ahead of time, what's in the movie, so I can play it for the audience before, so they have some kind of an idea what's the background music in the movie. So it's really neat. The only other theater in the country that does this type of thing before the pre-shows is the El Capitan downtown LA. I started playing the organ at the age of 8. My dad, back in 1928, he was employed by the Wurlitzer Company, and he installed the Fox organ back in 1928. Then I started at the Fox Theater and also Ruggieri's Restaurant and Dr. Fry United Methodist Church for Stan Ken, my mentor. During that time, Stan was started to Mike Douglas, Johnny Carson Show, The Tonight Show, Merv Griffin, you name it, he was there, and he needed assistance, so I was his assistant for some 7 years. The Fox Theater closed back in 1978, and then I was looking for work. And then when I heard that the Chase was going to open up, and they were going to be having a movie theater, I've been here ever since. In 2018, we started something different. Silent movies with organ accompaniment, like how they did it back in the 20s. The one I did recently was the Rudolph Valentino, the son of the Sheik. Just a little I keep it going, you know. You have to keep it going. Yes, I love it. I love it.
Next week, why people had to form underground libraries and book clubs. Plus, why this artist likes to paint on canvas and then tear it up. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.